15 minutes of truth. Let's get into the mix.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Daily Mix. I'm your host, Omari Jahi, and I really appreciate you guys giving me a small piece of your day from 12 to 12:15, Monday through Fridays. Here in the mix, we don't look at what happens in our lives. We look at the architect of how it happens, how things happen in our lives. We look for the patterns. And today, we're not going to do anything less. We are talking about the geometry, the speciality that geometry has in our lives. We operate in a society that teaches us that life is a straight line. You start at point A, you go straight till you get to your destination, which is point B. And eventually, you're going to get where you're supposed to be. But it's a straight line. But the universe doesn't operate in straight lines. It operates in 360-degree circles. The seasons, the planets, the tides, they all move in a circular motion. So why don't we think our lives are so different? Today, we are unpacking the cycles of life. We're going to look at the diameters of the circle, how life constantly repeats itself, and the dangerous realities that most of us are completely unaware of. We are just running in a circle, going nowhere fast, thinking we really getting things done, thinking that we're really progressing in this thing called life. And we just going in spiritual circles, doing the same thing over and over again, just with different people, different situations, but it's the same crap. But we're going to let's just jump into the mix and look at this math and let's see what it's showing us for the day. All right, this is the first thing. We are socially conditioned to think linearly, straight lines, right? Point A, point B. We think progress means moving further away from where we started. So if I started poor and I'm middle class now, we think that we've done something. We've progressed, so to say. We would think that. But ancient wisdom and natural law teaches us that progress is often about completing the circle or the cycle. As in this image here, a circle is 360 degrees. In life, we walk this circumference. Every degree represents a phase, a season, or a lesson. We think we're walking into new territory, but often we are just hitting a different degree on the same track. It's like a straight line. If you put a straight line side to side through the center of a circle, connecting the two ends, the A and the B, if you connect those two, those opposite points or whatever, think of one end being 0 degrees and the other being a 180. Let's say that, 180 degrees. And we would think that we are as far away from the beginning or the starting point as we're ever going to get, just by getting to this point over here across the B area. And that's just halfway. If you look at the circle, that's just halfway around. But what about 360 going the whole circle? But this little part that we're talking about going just from A to B represents an extreme shift in life. Going from, it's almost like polarities, going from wealth to poverty. Or let's look at it like this. If when you went from A to B, that's daylight hours. That's during the daylight. And it goes from B back to A is nighttime. And then you keep repeating over and over again. Vicious circle. Daylight, nighttime, daylight, nighttime. You're going around in a circle, right? That's a very good way of looking at it, right? You know, even peace and love, or peace and chaos, I should say, the opposite ends of the spectrum is another way of looking at it. When we hit that 380-degree mark and everything feels upside down, the diameter reminds you, or that diameter reminds you, that the extreme opposite is still connected to the same circle. And that's what I was saying a minute ago. In darkness, all we got to do is keep going, and daylight is going to come automatically. To get back to where you started, if you started in daylight, all you have to do is keep going. It's coming. Getting back to that top, that 360, going that full circle. You don't run away, or you don't, because it's dark, you don't get scared and sit in a corner somewhere and just cower to yourself. No, you have to keep pushing through, moving forward in life, because we think life is a straight line. We don't recognize when we cross the 360. We don't even recognize when it comes back to the beginning. That beginning mark, we don't recognize it because it looks the same, and you don't know how long it takes you to get there. For some of us, we may be talking about a day, 24 hours in a day cycle, or maybe a month, a 30-day cycle, or maybe a year, or a week, a year. You see, none of us are really paying attention to our life to that degree where we can identify that we've done this before. We've been here already. A lot of times we start calling it deja vu. A lot of people look at it as deja vu, but that's a whole nother story. But we attack that same type of toxic relationship, the same financial hardships. When we started, we was going through some stuff. And then we become full circle. We're still going through that same stuff. We haven't evolved. We haven't gotten better. Same conflicts at work. Same people getting on your nerve. It may even be a different job. But you're going through the same stuff, which would lead us to believe it is not the people, it's you. We change faces, the jobs changes, the locations change. We think we have a new problem. No, we don't realize we're just playing the same script on a new lap around the circle because we failed to learn the lesson the first time around. See, life is like a school where we are taught lessons. Think of the circle as a school year. At the end of the year, we will be tested to see what we learned, right? If we don't pass the test, we repeat the grade. They call that demote, right? Well, how do we break this cycle of going around in a circle or having to, you would think, learn the lesson, right? But you can't stop this circular nature of life. You can't stop winter from coming. You can't stop the 360-degree rotation. But what you can do is learn the lesson of the cycle and add elevation to your life. Elevate. As you can see in this graph, as you go around, it starts looking like a cone. The next time around, you're supposed to be on the inner circle. And as you go around, you're supposed to be on the next circle. And you're supposed to be, that's elevation. That's how our lives are supposed to look. When you add elevation to a circle, it takes the shape of a cone, like an upside down cone shape. Yes, you will come back around to the same things. You will face heartbreak again. You will face financial tests again. But if you have learned the lesson, you will face them on a higher vantage point or a higher level. You won't be trapped on this flat circle going around and around doing the same thing over and over again. And they call that insanity. You know that, right? Okay, I'll just let you know. You will be spiraling upward. Now, what happens when you learn all the lessons in grammar school? Just using that as an example. You graduate, right? And then you go to high school. New lessons to learn. That makes sense? Well, I only got a few more minutes left. We have to wake up and look at the geometry of our decisions, or the circularness of our decisions. Are we just making decisions that keep us going around in circles and circles? Or are you actually making forward progress? Or are you just running blind laps on the same track, round and round? Well, the next time you find yourself saying, why does this keep happening to me? I want you to stop and realize you just hit 360 degrees again. You just came back to the beginning, the starting point. You're back at that starting point of the same lesson you haven't mastered yet. Learn the lesson. Add some elevation. Turn that repetition or that repetitive circle into a spiral and rise above it. Now, what if we never learn the lesson of life and we grow old and we die before we can even elevate? We just, for our entire life, are constantly going in a circle. What happens then? Well, it's a thing called reincarnation. Do it again. I'm Omari Jahi, y'all. Keep your mind sharp, keep your spirit grounded, and I'll catch you tomorrow when we will be discussing reincarnation. Everlasting life. You know, we were promised everlasting life. What does that really mean? We'll be on that tomorrow. And until then, I'm your boy, Minister Omari Jahi, and I'm out.
Take care of your mind, take care of your health, and we'll be back in the mix tomorrow at 12 noon. Till then, peace out.